What's up, folks? This is your man Atl for the Hawksbeat Podcast. On today's episode, we got my man David, aka D Lee for 3 Hawks content creator. This is the first of a 2-part episode. We're going to be talking Zacharrie Risacher, Summer League, and roster construction. Make sure you tap in to both episodes. Hawksbeat Podcast starts right now. Let's go.
Kevin Huerter to get it in. Everyone standing at State Farm Arena. Huerter looks, plays it into Trey. 2 seconds, one. Trey's floater. Good! With .1, and the Hawks are going to win this game.
I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children. Praise be to Allah.
You are now listening to the Hawksbeat Podcast with your host, Ida. What up, folks? It's your man Ida for another edition of the Hawksbeat Podcast. Hope everyone out there is doing well in podcast land, wherever you may be listening to the podcast. I got a special guest with me today. My guy David, otherwise known as D Lee for 3 on Twitter and all these other spaces, man. And you guys know I normally don't do a lot of guests, but this guy's doing amazing work on his platforms and his content creation, man. So I wanted to come in and chop it up with him. And D, what's up, man? How you feeling?
Man, I'm good. And I appreciate you, giving me the opportunity to come out here and speak to the people. And thank you so much for that compliment. I'm trying to do my best in this space, so that means a lot.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I always try to reach out to the younger folks. Now I can say that as the old grizzled veteran. I'm about to start my 11th year covering the Hawks, but I've been peeping out your stuff and your content. I met you last year was your first year as a credentialed content creator, right? Covering the team, being in the building,
correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk to me first of all, talk to me about like that journey of getting into content creation and the things you're doing for the Hawks.
For sure. So honestly, I've always wanted to, I'm just a diehard Hawks fan. I'm from Atlanta. I've lived in this city my whole life. So the team means everything to me. And I'm like, well, I'm investing all this energy into it. Like, why not talk about it? I'm always watching basketball. I'm talking about basketball. So it just made sense to try and monetize it. And I ended up avoided getting COVID for the first year and a half. And then my siblings gave it to me when I went home. And I figured, well, this is a great time for me to begin taking my first step into making content. So I made a YouTube video and then started making TikTok, started trying to grow on Twitter. And then eventually, my parents run the first Black newspaper based out of Baltimore. It's one of the oldest Black businesses in the country, the Afro. And I sort of approached them like, well, I have this sort of passion for covering sports. And if we're based in Atlanta, at least what my mother is. And so I figured, why not apply for a credential? And I ended up getting approved. And it was a dream for me, to be able to ask those questions directly that I've always wanted to ask, and then, speak directly to the players, the coaches. So it's been fantastic so far. And I'm not sure if being a reporter is something I necessarily want to do long-term. I'm in school for industrial engineering. But as for right now, it's amazing. It's really a dream come true.
Yeah, man. I always tell people, and like I said, I'm going on my 11th year doing this, and it's just something different about covering the games in person, talking to the coach, talking to the players, and it just gives you a different perspective, man. So, kudos, man. Keep on doing your thing, man. I think you're doing wonderful stuff, man, out there. But want to chop it up with you, man, just about some Hawk stuff going on. There is a bit of news, but we'll kind of get to that a little bit later. Vic Krejci is back into the fold. He signs a 4-year, $10 million contract. We'll talk about that. Bruno's contract extension got moved back further to August 1st. And they had media availability today at Summer League. For the Summer League squad. And we'll kind of touch on that. First things first, man. You did your latest video, man. It's going crazy on Twitter, man. It's got like 10,000 views. You did a video where you talked about Zach, you talked about AJ, you talked about Nicola, man. You ran the gamut, man. But talk to me about just your journey on Risacher, because it appears to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it appears to me like you kind of wanted in the beginning, you kind of wanted the Hawks to draft Alex Sarr, which was kind of my pick in the beginning. But I want to hear, what was your experience like?
Yeah, I think journey is the perfect word. That's really what it was, because just to be candid, it took a while for me to accept the pick for what it was. And it's not necessarily an indictment on Risacher or even the Hawks front office. It's more so I felt like we had an opportunity to get that versatile big man that we really haven't had since, honestly, I would say Al Horford, and that's before he even sort of morphed into becoming even more versatile. We've kind of had these one-dimensional big men who are heavily reliant on Trey offensively, and then also sort of one-dimensional defensively outside of Onyeka Okongwu. But I thought Sarr would be that opportunity to get that guy, a higher upside guy that I think than Risacher. He's not without his questions. I don't think there's very few prospects that are ever without question. Absolutely. And he was by no means like the consensus number one pick. But I do think for the Hawks situation where we have an older center and some things should be changed at that position, I thought it made sense to get a big man. And to my understanding as well, with the whole reporting around him not wanting to work out for the Hawks, that was not Hawks exclusive. Like it wasn't just the Hawks that he didn't want to play for. He wanted to be in Washington. So it appears that he didn't want to work out in Houston either. So I think at some point the Hawks were like, okay, well, if he's already sort of indicating that he's not excited to be here, I think Risacher made sense once you sort of put him in the context of all the other moves the Hawks made. Now, if they would have took Risacher and kept DeJounte on this team and ran it back, I would have been a lot more upset at that pick. But once you sort of see the entirety of the vision of the new front office, and I think that began with the 2023 draft with Kobe Buffkin and Seth Lundy and Mohamed Gay, sort of length, versatility, two-way players, guys who are skilled with the ball in their hands but can also hold up defensively. I think you start to see a pattern. You start to see a plan coming into fruition. So I talked about it in my video, but I don't think Risacher is a conventional number one pick, but that might be okay with the way the Hawks are building. And I also feel like it's reductive to put a ceiling on a young player. He just turned 19. He may have not shown that self-creation that you want to see from a number one pick, but ultimately he does provide instantly a lot of the things that we are missing on this roster, which is size, which is defense, and which is shooting. And at 6'9", shooting 40% over a decent sample size, I'm not saying he's going to do that in the NBA, but he immediately sort of steps into that role as a jumbo size shooter, which every team in the NBA would love to have. Mm-hmm. Also about what he can do to sort of add on to what he's already proven he can do. But yeah, man, journey is absolutely the word to describe it. But I think I'm optimistic. I'm still a little bit cautious about it, and I honestly don't agree with the philosophy that got him to be in number one pick conversations in general. But I'm a Hawk, and so I'll support him, but I'll also, I'll be candid about his flaws as well.
Yeah, I was for me, and a little bit like really quickly, I'm not really a Hawks fan like you're a fan. I'm a fan. I want them to win, but I don't have the emotion and stuff like other Hawks fans, and so I kind of have a different angle from it. I wanted them to pick Sarr because he was number one on my board. He was like the best, and kind of very similar to what you saw. And very similar to like once I'm like, oh, this dude's not working out. Like this dude doesn't want to be the number one pick. Like I didn't like that from like a personality standpoint.
That's a good point. Like you don't want an extra $4 million. You don't want the notoriety of being the number one pick. Like I don't. Yeah, it's definitely questionable.
Yeah. So like now I'm questioning your character, and like Landry's on this big Hawks DNA thing, and and I get it. Like it's a selling point. All he's really saying is like he wants high character guys, and I'm okay with that. Like it gets kind of redundant hearing him always say that, but like it is what it is. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I almost up to the day I was like, look, man, if that's your guy, that's your guy. Like you know what I'm saying? If he's not on your board, you pick him. But like once they drafted him, and once it kind of came along, I was like, you know what? There is value in a guy wanting to be there. Right, like there is value in a guy wanting to be there, and another guy like, is your typical number one pick? No, he's not. But everybody knew that. Like we knew that. We knew what we had to work with in this draft. You are a very analytical guy. You have a lot of facts and figures, and you're very breakdown, and I like that about you because I'm not like that. and and I love the content creating space because there's space for all of that, right? You know, I listen to a lot of Hawks podcasts. My guy Brad, my guy Glenn, and they all do an amazing job, but we all have different types of podcasts, and they're all different areas, you know. So there's lanes for all of that. When you look at Zach's tape, once you start to like kind of dive into it, what popped out to you? Like, what are a few things that popped out looking at Zach's tape?
I think what instantly popped out to me is he's not just a shooter. And I think that's something that's really important. You have a lot of guys who are very rigid in their play style. So if you talk about sort of he's exclusively looking to shoot the ball off the catch, or he's exclusively looking to run off screens and look for a shot, he has moments where he could drive a closeout. He has moments where he's going to cut to the basket off ball. And I think that's really important when you're assessing a prospect's feel. So if he was consistently always just spaced to the corner and not looking to sort of float into these gaps and make himself available to his ball handlers, I think that would be a little bit of a red flag. Now, the actual functionality of him driving closeouts is not there right now. He shot like under 30% driving to his left out of spot up situations and around 33% driving to his right. But the thing is, he's doing it. And I think that's something that with a Hawks team where you have someone like Trey who creates advantages, you need people who are going to be able to maintain those advantages and not just sort of be static off the ball. So I think movement is really important. That's what jumped out to me. And I think what also jumped out to me defensively is his ability to be a team defender. And he's really good at positioning himself in help against big men, tagging rollers, getting his hand on the ball. That's where I think his greatest strength is. And I like the fact that he's not afraid to be physical around the rim, but not necessarily he's not going to challenge a shot at the rim, but he's going to meet the roller before he gets the ball. And I think that's important in a team defense context because then it allows your big man to recover. And so from that, I think he's very functional as a team player at this point. But what definitely didn't jump out was self-creation or any sort of I don't feel confident about his offensive ceiling with the ball in his hands. But outside of that, I think he's an excellent team player.
Yeah, I that was going to be one of my things too. The lack of self-creation, but I do have faith in the Hawks' ability to what's the word I'm looking for? Like grow their players. You know, they brought Ryan Schmidt onto the coaching staff, who did a great job developing those guys in College Park last year. So and they had tape of him like working with Zacharrie today, and like they were just like at practice, and Schmidt was with him working on a few things. So he's already going to work, and so that is promising if you are a Hawks fan. Do you think that being that his game is not a traditional like a number one pick type game, do you think that he might get some blowback by the fans? And by blowback, we all know how Hawks fans are, you know, yourself included, you know, but we know, you know, there's levels to Hawks fandom, right? Like, you know, you got your regular fans, you got your pessimists, you got your optimists, you got your yahoos. Fans are fans, right?
Yeah.
Do you think he's going to get any blowback being the number one guy, that his game isn't really that sexy?
Yeah, and I think that's something that I'm trying to temper the expectations of anyone who will listen to me. And it's not that I'm trying to detract from his game, but it's just more so like he's not going to come in and average. He might not even average 15. And I don't think he might not average over 10, if I'm being honest. And it's like I was saying when we had the potential to draft Sarr, I was like, he might not start. And people are getting mad at me. And it's like, well, who's the last number one pick to not start? And I'm like, this is a completely different team. It's a different context.
Yeah.
Like it's a lot of different things that you have to sort of consider when you're looking at a prospect. And I'm not gonna lie, like it may be a lot of games where people are gonna be really mad at him for not doing certain things, and it's like that's not his game. You know, he's still super young, and what's really interesting is he's never been a ball dominant player at any point in his career. Don't expect him to start running the pick and roll and go in ISO. That's not happening, you know. So I think it's going to be that type of thing where people are going to learn what type of player he is, and he's going to be. But we need team players. Like we haven't had guys who do the dirty work. Really, since DeLon Wright left, we've had nobody besides I'll say Krejci, Garrison Matthews, but besides DeLon Wright, we haven't had someone in the rotation who's like doing those little things as a good team player. And so that's what I'm excited for. I'm not looking for him to go hezzy tween pull up from 25 feet. If I'm being honest, that'd be nice, but that's not what I'm looking for.
That's not him. Like, shout out to DeLon Wright. You know, shout out to my guy, Brad Rowland. I always say him and I are the official president and vice president of the DeLon Wright fan club. And I hope he has a great season. But, yeah, I feel you. And it's going to be interesting to just see the fan reaction come summer league, because I don't think like his game fits like summer league. I don't, and that's not nothing bad. Like it's just like summer league is more like for those guards, who go side to side. It's not sexy, you know what I'm saying? So I said on my podcast, I was like, hey man, I was like, I normally tell y'all not to OD on summer league and y'all go with these expectations, but this year I'm not fighting it. Y'all go crazy. You know what I mean? Go crazy with the expectations, because it's going to be what it's going to be. I think he's a good kid. I think that the language barrier is a lot for him, to be honest with you. I spoke with him on draft night, and just watching his interviews today, like it's tough. Like doing all of this in a second language, so and then you have the language on the court, so all of those things are going to be factors as well. Like terminology and everything. But for what it's worth, I think he's a good kid. I like the skill set. I see what the Hawks are trying to do now is to be longer and to be, more dominant on the defensive end, as far as like just surrounding Trey with like big wings. You know what I'm saying? So I'm down with the kid. I wish him the best. You know what I mean?
It's interesting to hear you say you don't, you're not really high on him in summer league. I'll say, and I'm curious how you feel about this. I think Kobe will make it a lot easier for him than if Kobe wasn't there. Because one thing about summer league is it's typically not good guard play. And one thing about Kobe is he's very methodical. He can get guys shots. And as much as I want to see him grow as an offensive player, I think having the presence of Muhammad Gay, even Nikola Jurisic to a lesser extent as well, like they're all really gifted shot creators, so that he's not going to be pressured to go out and create. Now, if he was the only prospect on our team, I think it could get really ugly. But do you think he'll have a little bit less pressure on him because of those guys that he's playing next to?
Well, I don't think less pressure is a thing when you're a number one pick, man. There's going to be pressure there, and it's not going to be fair. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And I think he'll do fine, but I'm saying according to what people will probably expect as a number one pick, what fans expect, what the media is going to expect as a number one pick. I just don't think I think he'll play good, but like I don't think it's going to pop. That's kind of what I mean by that. But and I think to your point, I think Kobe being there is going to be really good for him. I think Mo being there is going to be good for him. Mo was talking today about him today, and just saying how the guys are finally starting to kind of get some camaraderie and stuff. And man, there's so many interesting storylines surrounding this team, just beyond like the number one pick and everything. But talk to me about your guy Nikola. Now, he was the guy that they picked up in the second round. I did see you had a little bit on on your YouTube video. For me, very athletic guy, very aggressive guy, very raw. They haven't offered him a contract yet. I personally think they'll probably get him on a two-way. I don't think he'll be a draft and stash, although they could, but I think that he'll eventually be on a two-way spot with this squad. What you think? What you see with Nikola? I think it's Jurisic.
Yes.
I've been slaying his name for like 2 weeks.
I think it's Jurisic, but it is definitely hard.
One
to
of
say.
them. I just call him Nikola. Like that's the easy one I can do.
Man, he's super skilled. I'll say that for sure. Like when it comes to shot creation, I think he can get to pretty much any spot on the floor. I really like how much height he gets on his jump shot. I think not only does it look good, but I think it helps when you're shooting off the catch, when you're able to elevate. Also helps when you're elevating over contests. He's 6'8", but he doesn't have a plus wingspan. He's got about a 6'8"-ish wingspan. You mentioned his athleticism. He's a step above sneaky athlete. People love to throw that on white guys, but like he's actually functionally athletic. He's got some strength. He can get above the rim. He will dunk on people. And he also like gets off the floor really quick. And that's also important because he's not a super big guy. Like I said, his wingspan, he doesn't have a plus wingspan, but he will dunk on you. I'll say like some of the flaws in his game is, well, the thing is like the context of the team that he's playing with, he was playing with the number 12 pick, Nikola Topic. And Topic is a point guard, ball dominant, but a great passer, great playmaker. And Jurisic was not an impactful player when Topic was on the team. And once Topic left and Jurisic was running the offense, then he exploded. He was averaging 20, I want to say around 4 or 5 assists. It was above 62 true shooting percentage. So his efficiency went up, his scoring went up. But the fact that he was not scoring well off the ball is a little bit concerning because you would think with his jump shot, he'd be a little bit better off the catch, but he really wasn't. He was below 30%. Some of I saw a twinge of frustration when he was playing with Topic as well, when he wasn't getting the ball. I think he's similar to Risacher. I think he has a great personality from what I've seen in the interviews, the way he's talking with Risacher. I don't think he's a selfish guy by any means, but I think there was a little bit of frustration with him not getting the shot creation volume he thought he deserved, and he showed that he did deserve it once Topic left. But I think the biggest questions with him is, okay, you're in the NBA now. You're not going to run 10 pick and rolls a game. So what are you going to do to be impactful outside of that? And then defensively, again, he doesn't have crazy length, but he's pretty much in the right spot most of the times. And then the shot, because the shot is pretty, but the results weren't there. So will that translate to the NBA? I don't know, but I think he's got in the second round, when you just took a guy with a high floor with number 1 pick, I think he's one of the best picks of the second round because he has a wide range of outcomes. But you can do that in the second round. And it was good to see the Hawks spend money to move up to get him and get into a draft that they didn't have a second round pick in. So it was encouraging for that at the very least.
Yeah. I hated to see AJ go, and I know you hated to see AJ go. Man, one of your guys. And the little bit of hair that I had last season, I was just like, it was just frustrating. I won't go into all of that, but I kind of want to spend my time on the guys that are here. Shout out to AJ though, man. That is, when I tell you that is a good kid, that is a good kid, man. Inside, outside, he is a good kid. And even though he's not in Atlanta, I will always pull for that kid, man. He's got a great smile and just and I've been doing this for 11 years, and I can't say that about everybody that I've come across. But when you see good kids, you really just want the best for them. I want to go in a little bit into the roster construction now. Again, they re-signed Vit. They moved Bruno back a little bit. As far as the roster is concerned, there's been a lot of talk about Clint and DeAndre Hunter probably being the next dominoes to fall as far as maybe trading those two away. What is your take on that? Do you think they'll get rid of both of them? You think they'll get rid of one of them? What is kind of your take on the next move for the Hawks?
Yeah. Apologies to Brad. I know he loves Clint, but I do think that's the most logical decision for them to make. Now, whether he gets moved, man, I don't know. But I think with the way this roster is going, Clint's value just as an older center is going to be declining over the next couple of years. I'm not going to say he's a bad player because he isn't. He had a sneaky good season. But everything's what's going to stand out is those misses at the rim, of course, because they're like gut punches. You feel like you just got shot by a shotgun because he missed a wide open layup to win the game. But at the end of the day, elite offensive rebounder, still a plus rim protector. And they're asking him to defend in space a lot more than he was used to. They were asking him to play make a little bit more as a dribble handoff hub. And I think there were some moments, I even asked him, I was like, look, you look pretty good out there when you did a fake dribble handoff. I was like, I didn't even know you had that in your bag. And he said he's been working on it. But I remember when you asked him that. I think that functionally it makes sense to move him. Also, you have 4 centers on the roster right now. And then I think DeAndre Hunter in a bench role is a lot better than he is as a starter. We saw that last season. Where he has a more simplified role, just go and get buckets and play solid defense as opposed to go and guard the team's best player. Now you have Dyson Daniels for the guards. As Risacher matures, maybe he can be that primary defender. Jalen Johnson against those bigger wings and forwards. So he you've shifted his role a bit with some of the moves they made. So personally, I would be advocating that unless we're packaging both of them for a star, or not even a star, but a secondary ball handler or a secondary playmaker, I would move both of them. But outside of that, I think I'd be looking to move Clint and then make moves alongside the margin. But that's probably where I'm at right now. Where are you at?
I think that Clint is probably the most obvious domino to fall next. I think of the two, he probably has more value than DeAndre.
Probably, yeah.
I think the whole DeAndre Hunter thing, and I know the Hawks want to move him, but again, they're going to move the guy who's easier to move first. I think with DeAndre, it's going to be a little bit harder to move. Not that you can't because of that contract, right? Yeah. So that contract is a very hindrance, and that brings your value down. And so what you have with DeAndre, you got a guy that you kind of would rather have a little bit more value if you have to move him, right? Because you're paying him so much money. Right. I think you move Clint and you'll probably get some pieces back. I don't know if they're looking for draft picks or another whatever. I think Clint will be up out of here, but I think DeAndre will probably be on this team until maybe. Here's the thing: maybe, and I don't think this is the worst thing because I'm kind of higher on DeAndre the most. Like, I know he gets to the Hawks Twitter, but like DeAndre Hunter is okay with me. Like, he's not a superstar, but like he's just okay with me. Like, I'm okay. I don't like the contract, but like having a guy like him with his skill set at 6'8", it's fine, right? And so if you have a guy like DeAndre Hunter to start for like first half of your season to let Risacher kind of come along, I don't think that's a bad thing. Then you move him at the trade deadline. So the hope is that maybe you let him play a half of the season. Hopefully he can stay healthy. Hopefully he can increase that value. And then you ship him out and say, all right, young blood, the 3 spot is yours now. Like, that's kind of how I'm thinking of the whole DeAndre Hunter thing. But if they move both of them, then I don't see them moving both of them together because I just don't know who they would do that for. Like, I don't know, because I think those types of moves are done. Like, I think DeJounte Murray, once you made that move, like, that was a splash move. Like, that was a splash move. So, I don't know, man. We're going to see. But I could see DeAndre being here on opening night and just, hopefully they try to get his value up and then they move after that, But I don't know.
And
like, what are your thoughts on DeAndre?
So, and I wish I could show you this, but I'm looking at a chart right now. It's the value added and the value subtracted from each Hawks player based on the contract value. And I want you to guess who last by a sizable margin. Yeah, so it's DeAndre Hunter. And it's like, when you talk about him as a player, he's not a bad player by any means.
He's
like,
not.
He is
it's
not.
That contract, man.
But he is not producing at the level that he should be on that contract. And that's not even his fault. That's the Hawks' fault. We've had issues with these extensions.
If anything, kudos to my guy for getting that bread. I'm all for guys getting that bread.
Yeah, I can't blame him for the Hawks thinking he's worth more than he was. They did it with John Collins. They've done plenty of extensions that were head scratchers at the time. But it just comes down to the contract value. And it's like, well, that's just bad asset management. But if you can get him in a reduced role where he's a little bit more impactful, I'm not mad at that. I think Clint is the bigger issue. And it's because I think Clint is, when you take Onyeka Okongwu with the 6th pick, that's significant draft capital invested in who should be the center of the future. And I've seen a lot of people talk about how he hasn't been able to outplay Clint. But I don't think he's had the opportunity. I think there were a lot of games where he should have closed and he didn't.
Absolutely.
And that's also because, if you're benching Clint Capella and you're looking to trade him next season, it becomes a lot harder. So I'm not saying that's why, but I think there is a little bit of politics with that, with him being an older player and on a higher contract. So it's like Onyeka's on a 4-year, $64 million deal. I think he should be playing the majority share of the minutes. That's where I am right now. So that's also another reason why I'm an advocate for moving Clint.
Yeah, and if not, get rid of him. It doesn't make sense to be paying 2 centers like that to me. Like, you can't be paying 2 centers when there's only one. You can't be paying them both starters money and just having one to be on the bench. Like, you got to make a choice. Like, you have to make a choice. Yeah. And so, the obvious choice is Clint because he's making more and that money's going to fall off the books. Okongwu is younger. I mean, I know there are some durability issues with Okongwu that I have, but I mean, play the younger guy and bring another offensive rebounder in here, somebody that does maybe similar to what Clint does. But they definitely got decisions to make as far as the centers are concerned. They keep on pushing Bruno's date back. I think that might be a good sign for him. Maybe they're trying to keep him. Maybe they want to trade Clint before they push that back. So that could be a good sign for Bruno. I'm not going to spend all day talking about a 3rd-string center, but I like Bruno, man. He's a fun guy. Yeah. I mean, I covered him when he first got drafted, man. He's a good kid.